The aroma of freshly ground coffee and cardamom was Samar's anchor. It was a scent of normalcy, a fragrant ghost of a time when the loudest sound in her cafe was the clatter of backgammon pieces and the hiss of the brass rockwah on the burner. Now, that scent fought a losing battle against the metallic clang of fear that clung to the basalt stone streets of Suwayda. Through the large, arched window of her small shop, Samar watched the city hold its breath. The men of the mountain, her neighbors, her cousins, her friends' husbands, had taken up arms. They stood as a bulwark against the tide of black flags that swelled on the horizon, a creeping plague of zealots who saw their ancient Druze faith as heresy and their vibrant city as a prize to be purged. The radio, perched on a shelf behind the counter, crackled with grim updates. Villages on the outskirts had fallen. The reports were clinical, but Samar could see the faces of the people who lived there, could smell the jasmine that grew in their courtyards. Her hands, usually so steady as she measured the fine coffee grounds, trembled slightly. An old man named Adnan, a permanent fixture on his favorite stool, swirled the dark sludge at the bottom of his tiny cup. "They want to silence the mountain, Samar," he rasped, his voice as weathered as the stones outside. "They want to replace our songs with their shrieks and our coffee with bitterness." A dull, concussive thud from the east rattled the glass in the window. The few patrons in the cafe flinched. Samar's heart hammered against her ribs. It was closer than yesterday. The door swung open and her younger brother Fadi stood there. He was barely 19, but the last few weeks had chiseled away his boyishness, leaving behind the stark angles of a soldier. He wore dusty jeans and a t-shirt, but the old hunting rifle slung over his shoulder made him a stranger. His eyes, the same deep brown as hers, were hard with a terrifying resolve. "Samar," he said, his voice clipped, "you should close up. Go home. It's not safe." She looked from his determined face to the rifle he clutched, and then back to the warm, inviting space she had built with her father before he passed. She saw the colorful cushions, the framed photos of the city in happier times, the intricate patterns on the coffee pots. This wasn't just a business. It was a sanctuary of their culture. It was everything the men with the black flags wanted to destroy. They wanted to extinguish the light of Suwayda, and they would start here. They would start with its color, its music, its conversation, its coffee. Fadi was going to fight them with a gun. What was her weapon? A quiet strength, cool and clear, washed over her. It was the resilience of the mountain itself, of generations who had refused to bow. "No, Fadi," she said, her voice surprisingly firm. "I'm staying." He opened his mouth to argue, but she cut him off. "You go and keep them from our doors. I will keep the heart of this place beating for when you return. The men will need coffee when they come back from the line. They will need a place that still feels like home." Fadi stared at her for a long moment, the hardness in his eyes softening just a fraction. He saw not naivety, but a different kind of courage. He nodded once, a sharp, quick gesture of understanding. "Be safe, sister." He turned and vanished back into the tense streets. Samar took a deep breath, the air filling her lungs with the scent of cardamom and defiance. She walked back behind the counter, her hands no longer shaking. She took a clean rockwah, filled it with fresh water, and began to measure out the coffee. The small, rhythmic sounds of her work were a prayer, an act of rebellion. She would not let them turn her coffee into bitterness.